The Élysée Palace, Palais de l'Élysée, stands as one of the most significant landmarks in Paris, symbolizing the heart of the French government. The Élysée Palace stands as an emblem of French governance and political power, offering a glimpse into the workings of the French presidency and the country's rich history. This magnificent building serves not only as the official residence of the President of the French Republic but also as the seat of the presidential office. The palace, with its rich history and monumental architecture, has witnessed centuries of political, royal, and imperial significance. A rich history of royalty and power. The origins of the Élysée Palace date back to 1720, when it was constructed by architect Armand Claude Mollet for Louis Henri de la Tour d'Auvergne, Count of Évreux. Over the years, the palace changed hands several times. It was given to Madame de Pompadour in 1753, a favorite of Louis XV, and later became the residence of Joachim Murat, Napoleon I's brother-in-law. The property took on even greater significance in 1805, when Napoleon I made it his imperial residence. By 1848, it was officially established as the residence of the President of the French Republic, marking the beginning of its long-standing connection with the French presidency. Architecture and design. The Élysée Palace is an exquisite example of French neoclassical architecture. It features a grand ceremonial courtyard framed by a monumental gate, with 4 Ionic columns and balustrades lining the entrance. Inside, the residence is divided into 2 primary sections, the state apartments and the private apartments. The state apartments include grand salons used for official functions and meetings with dignitaries, while the private apartments provide a more intimate space for the French president. The gardens of the Élysée are equally impressive. Designed in the French formal style, they are lined with chestnut trees, meticulously arranged flowerbeds, and elegant hedgerows. The layout of the gardens reflects the grandeur and orderliness of the palace itself. Élysée as a symbol of French power. Today, the Élysée Palace stands as a symbol of French political power, hosting key events such as Council of Ministers meetings and international summits. Emmanuel Macron, the current president, resides here and uses it as the official venue for meetings with world leaders and diplomats. The palace also houses a team of advisors and staff who manage the presidential duties and services. The palace is frequently used for state functions, including official receptions and celebrations such as Bastille Day. A rare opportunity to visit the Élysée Palace. Each year, the Élysée Palace opens its doors during the Journées Européennes du Patrimoine. Visitors can explore the gardens, cour d'honneur, and historic rooms like the Golden Salon and the President's Office. The event also offers immersive experiences, special exhibits, and the chance to visit the Élysée Boutique. This is a unique opportunity to discover the rich history of one of France's most iconic landmarks. The Élysée Palace is the official residence of the President of France in Paris. Completed in 1722, it was built for Louis Henri de la Tour d'Auvergne, a nobleman and army officer who had been appointed governor of Île-de-France in 1719. It is located on the Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré in the 8th arrondissement, near the Champs-Élysées. The name Élysée derives from the Elysian Fields, the place of the blessed dead in Greek mythology. The Élysée Palace has been the home of personalities such as Madame de Pompadour, 1721–1764, Nicolas Beaujon, 1718–1786, Bathilde d'Orléans, 1750–1822, Joachim Murat, 1767–1815, and Charles Ferdinand, Duke of Berry, 1778–1820. On December 12, 1848, under the Second Republic, the French Parliament passed a law declaring the building the official residence of the French president. The Élysée Palace, which contains the presidential office and residency, is also the meeting place of the Council of Ministers, the weekly meeting of the government of France that is presided over by the President of the Republic. Across the street is the Hôtel de Marigny, which has served as a state guest house where the French government has hosted visiting dignitaries. Hôtel d'Évreux. The architect Armand Claude Mollet possessed a property fronting on the road to the village of Roule, west of Paris, now the Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honore, and backing onto royal property, the Grand Cours through the Champs-Élysées. He sold this in 1718 to Louis Henry de la Tour d'Auvergne, Count of Évreux, with the agreement that Mollet would construct an hotel particulier for the Count, fronted by an entrance court and backed by a garden. The Hôtel d'Évreux was finished and decorated by 1722, and though it has undergone many modifications since, it remains a fine example of the French neoclassical style. At the time of his death in 1753, Évreux was the owner of one of the most widely admired houses in Paris, and it was bought by the Marquise de Pompadour on December 24, 1753 for 730,000 livres. Opponents showed their distaste for the regime by hanging signs on the gates that read, "Home of the King's Whore." After her death, it was left in her will to the crown. In 1773, it was purchased by Nicolas Beaujon, banker to the court and one of the richest men in France, who needed a suitably sumptuous country house, for the city of Paris did not yet extend this far, to house his fabulous collection of great masters' paintings. To this end, he hired the architect Étienne Louis Boully to make substantial alterations to the buildings, as well as design an English-style garden. Soon on display there were such well-known masterpieces as Holbein's The Ambassadors, now in the National Gallery in London, and Franz Hall's Bohemian, now at the Louvre. His architectural alterations and art galleries gave this residence international renown as one of the premier houses of Paris. Royal and Imperial Palace. The palace and gardens were purchased from Beaujon by Bathilde d'Orléans, Duchess of Bourbon in 1787 for 1,300,000 livres. It was the Duchess who named it the Élysée. She also built a group of cottages in the gardens which she named the Hameau de Chantilly, after the hameau at her father-in-law's Château de Chantilly. With the French Revolution, the Duchess fled the country and the Élysée was confiscated and leased out. The gardens were used for eating, drinking, and dancing, under the name Hameau de Chantilly, and the rooms became gambling houses. The Élysée was sold in 1805 to Joachim and Caroline Murat, who administered major renovations that made the building more grand and imperial. Later, the house was transferred to Caroline's brother, Emperor Napoleon. In 1808, it became known as the Élysée Napoleon. After the Battle of Waterloo, Napoleon returned to the Élysée and signed his abdication there on June 22, 1815. He left the Élysée 3 days later. Russian Cossacks camped at the Élysée when they occupied Paris in 1814. The property was then returned to its previous owner, the Duchesse de Bourbon, who then sold it to her royal cousin, Louis XVIII, in 1816. Between 1820 and 1848, the palace was primarily used to host guests of the royal family. Presidential residence. Following the French Revolution of 1848 and the abdication of Louis Philippe, the provisional government of the Second Republic took over the palace. It was initially used to host musical performances and lectures before being renamed the Élysée National and designated as the official residence of the President of the Republic under the administration of Louis Napoleon Bonaparte. The President also has the use of other official residences, including the Château de Rambouillet, 45 kilometers southwest of Paris, as well as the Fort de Brégançon near Toulon. In 1853, following his coup d'état that ended the Second Republic, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, now Napoleon III, tasked architect Joseph-Eugène Lacroix with renovations. Meanwhile he moved to the nearby Tuileries Palace, but kept the Élysée as a discreet place to meet his mistresses, moving between the two palaces through a secret underground passage that has since been demolished. Since Lacroix completed his work in 1867, the essential look of the Palais de l'Élysée has remained the same. In 1873, under the Third Republic, the Élysée became the official presidential residence. In 1899, Félix IV became the only office holder to die in the palace. In 1917, a chimpanzee escaped from a nearby menagerie, entered the palace and was said to have tried to haul the wife of President Raymond Poincaré into a tree only to be foiled by Élysée guards. President Paul Deschanel, who resigned in 1920 because of mental illness, was said to have been so impressed by the chimpanzee's feat that, to the alarm of his guests, he took to jumping into trees during state receptions. The Élysée Palace was closed in June 1940 and remained empty during World War II. It was reoccupied only in 1946 by Vincent Auriol, President of the Provisional Government of the French Republic, then First President of the Fourth Republic from 1947 to 1954. From 1959 to 1969, the Élysée was occupied by Charles de Gaulle, the first President of the Fifth Republic. De Gaulle did not like its lack of privacy and oversaw the purchase of the luxurious Hôtel de Marigny to lodge foreign state officials in visits to France, saying, "I do not like the idea of meeting kings walking around my corridors in their pajamas." In the 1970s, President Georges Pompidou had some of the original rooms in the palace redesigned by Pierre Paulin in the modern style, of which only the salle à manger Paulin survives. Socialist President François Mitterrand, who governed from 1981 to 1995, is said to have seldom used its private apartments, preferring the privacy of his own home on the more bohemian Rive Gauche. A discreet flat in the nearby presidential annexe Palais de l'Alma housed his mistress Anne Pinget, mother of his illegitimate daughter Mazarine Pinget. By contrast, his successor Jacques Chirac lived throughout his 2 terms in office, 1995 to 2007, in the Élysée apartments with his wife Bernadette. Chirac increased the palace's budget by 105% to €90 million per year, according to the book L'argent cash de l'Élysée. €1 million per year is spent on drinks alone for the guests invited to the Élysée Palace, €6.9 million per year on bonuses for presidential staff and €6.1 million per year on the 145 extra employees Chirac hired after he was elected in 1995. The Élysée has gardens, in which presidents hosted parties on the afternoon of Bastille Day until 2010. That year, then President Nicolas Sarkozy decided to stop organizing this event because of France's high debt and the economic crisis. Emmanuel Macron, the President of France since 2017, currently resides at the palace. Description: the heavily guarded mansion and grounds are situated at 55 Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré at its intersection with Avenue de Marigny. A monumental gate with 4 Ionic order columns, flanked by walls topped by a balustrade, opens onto a large rounded courtyard. The majestic ceremonial courtyard imparts a degree of grandeur to the house. The main residence is constructed in the French neoclassical style. An entrance vestibule is aligned with the ceremonial courtyard and gardens. There is a long central building, a great, or state, apartment divided in the middle by a large salon that opens into the garden. This building also has a central 3-story section, and 2 single-floor wings, the appartement de bains to the right, and the petit appartement, private apartments, to the left. The French-style garden has a central path aligned with the central building, patterned flower beads and alleys of chestnut trees edged with hedgerows. Ground floor. The vestibule d'honneur, Hall of Honor, is the room which the main entrance to the palace leads into. In this room the President of France meets visiting officials, world leaders, and spiritual leaders. The Salon d'Argent, Silver Room, in the east wing of the palace, was decorated by Caroline Murat, wife of Joachim Murat and sister of Napoleon I. The room is so called because of the silver-colored edges to the wall features, mantelpieces, tables, sofas, and armchairs, of which the last have swan sculptures at the sides. 3 notable historical events happened in this room. On June 22, 1815, Napoleon formally signed his abdication warrant after losing the Battle of Waterloo that year. On December 2, 1851, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte launched his coup d'état, and in 1899, President Félix Faure met his mistress, Marguerite Steinheil. The salle à manger Paulin, Paulin dining room, named after its architect, Pierre Paulin, is a complete contrast to most of the other rooms in the palace. It was designed as a private dining room for President Georges Pompidou and his wife Claude, and the interior and furniture date from the 1970s. The walls are made of 22 polyester panels, the chairs have a single leg attached to a round base, and the round table is made of glass. The room is lit by roof panels decorated with glass balls and rods. The Salon de Portraits, portrait room, was used by the Emperor Napoleon III for portrait medallions of the most important sovereigns of the time, replacing earlier portraits of the Bonaparte family installed by Joachim Murat. The portraits are of Pope Pius IX, Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria-Hungary, Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom, King Victor Emmanuel II of Italy, Tsar Nicholas I of Russia, King Frederick William IV of Prussia, Queen Isabel II of Spain, and King William I of Württemberg. Previously a dining room, President Nicolas Sarkozy used the room as his second office. The Salle des Fêtes, Hall of Festivities, dominates the west wing of the palace. It was designed by Eugène de Bressanay and opened on May 10, 1889 by the then president, Sidi Carnot, to coincide with the Exposition Universelle that year. The room has paintings on the ceiling called La République sauvegarde la paix, the Republic safeguards peace, painted by Guillaume Dubiev in 1894. There are also 6 Gobelins tapestries in the room, which is predominantly laid out in red and gold decor. In 1984 President François Mitterrand added 10 windows to the room to let in more light. It is in this room that all French presidents are inaugurated, and where they host official conferences and banquets. The Jardins des Hivers, Winter Gardens, was built in 1883 as a greenhouse for growing plants. Today it is no longer used for this purpose, being instead an extension of the Salon des Fêtes, and used for official banquets. There is a Gobelins tapestry on the wall, and 3 chandeliers hang from the ceiling. The Salon Murat, Murat Room, is used every Wednesday by the President for meetings with the Prime Minister and the rest of the government of France, along with the Presidential Secretary, known as the Secretary General of the Élysée. It was also in this room that Konrad Adenauer, Chancellor of Germany, signed the Élysée Treaty in 1963. The Salon Cleopatra, Cleopatra Room, gets its name from a Gobelins tapestry on the wall, installed during the presidency of Sidi Carnot, which depicts Antony and Cleopatra meeting at Tarsus. Also in the room is a portrait of Maria Amalia, Duchess of Parma, painted by Alexander Roslin. The Salon des Ambassadeurs, Ambassadors Room, is where the French president officially receives ambassadors from abroad. The Salon Bleu, Blue Room, is used as the office of the First Lady of France. The Escalier Murat, Murat staircase, is the main staircase in the palace, linking the ground and first floors. First floor. The Salon Doré, Golden Room, is named after the gold-colored edges to the wall features, doors, tables, and chairs. All the French presidents have used this room as their main study except Valéry Giscard d'Estaing and Emmanuel Macron. The Salon Vert, Green Room, is named after the green curtains and chair covers. The doors, chairs, tables, and wall features have gold edges. The room is used for reunions, and it was here that Nicolas Sarkozy married his second wife, Carla Bruni, during his presidency. The Salon Angle, Angle Room, is a former dining room that has been the office of the Secretary General of the Élysée since 2007. The Salon de Faucheries, Flower Room, is named because it has floral patterned wallpaper. In the room is a portrait of King Louis XV, painted by Charles-André Van Loo. 10. The Ancienne Chambre de la Reine and the Ancienne Chambre du Roi were the bedrooms of the former kings and queens of France. The latter room was formerly used as the office of the Secretary General before he moved it to the Salon Angle. 6 other rooms on the first floor, in the east wing, are the President's private living quarters. Thank you for watching this video.